I'm supposed to make the introduction here, but it doesn't seem like I really need to. So today we're doing a session on starting your Homelab with Bernstein, digital identity professional with over 20 years of experience, active contributor to the San Antonio Information Security Community, former organizer of the local B-Side Security Conference since 2016, dedicated to fostering engagement in computing, security, and technology, and amateur stand-up.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's too kind. Hi there. I like to go by Sciatic Nerd, and I can't believe you are all here in the room with me to hear about Homelabs, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So there are so many different ways to actually get where you want to go with Homelabbing. This is just one way. This is what I've learned so far, and every time I come out to an event, I like to take notes and see what I can pick up and learn. And I already have pages of notes from here at HughSecCon. Have you been enjoying HughSecCon? Please give applause if you have been enjoying. This has been outstanding. Seriously, to Michael Farnham and the guys who put this together and the team that makes it happen and the volunteers, thank you so very, very much for giving a platform to folks like me and to giving us computer people a chance to come out and learn and engage and learn some new things. Speaking of learning things, disclaimer, there are lots of ways to do it, but this is one. Now, why are we always out of space? I used to sign up for the free things, and I loved saying, oh my gosh, look at all the room there is in this account, and I got one with my phone, and I got one with my sign-up for a free email service and everything else. But after a little while, it seemed like no matter what I did, hello? Aha. It didn't matter which thing I was trying to use, I would wind up getting told, oh, I said, do you want to give us a couple of bucks? We'll go ahead and give you a little more room. If you're just so close to the edge, we can't seem to give you more room unless you give us some funds. Well, that got me thinking about all the things I want to do that sometimes it seems like I have to pay money to do. And it's not just this, it's a little more room, it's a little this, it's a little that. I got to feeling like I was being nickeled and dimed every other time I turned around, trying to use my storage online. So this got me wondering, the real reason is they just want my cash. And I don't just mean C-A-C-H-E, they want to make sure that, that I know I'm the product. They remind me. If you are ever not having to pay to get something, you are giving something in exchange for the privilege of use. Whether it's your personal data, whether it's, hey, every single message I have from that email account, that free email account from Giant Big Company that I got back in 2006. Raise your hand if you've had access to a free email account since the mid-aughts. Yeah? When I got that account, I thought it was, just the end-all, be-all. I was now somebody because I had the named one that everybody would recognize. And what I have learned since then is that they have been farming every bit out of that stuff over time. Does that mean I appreciate it any less? Okay, a little. But what it also taught me was I got to a point where I wanted to take something back. Right? Because just because you learn something or you start someplace, that doesn't mean you can't learn and grow and change along the way, right? How many of you, again, show of hands, now that we've got a few more folks, if you run your own home lab in some form or fashion? Okay. Who here is thinking about it but is on the fence and doesn't really know where to start? Okay. Fair enough. Cool. And now, continuing the hand show, sorry if your arms are getting cold, how many of you have a computer or older piece of hardware that's sitting in a closet, under a bed, or hiding somewhere in your home that's just not running at the moment? Cool. All right. I've got some news for you. Things we can do with those toys. P.S. We're going to talk about some ideas behind self-hosting. Why would you do this? Why put yourself to the misery? Part of the joy of being connected to big box company is that they have to maintain the racks of equipment and storage and software and spam filters and all of those things so that you don't have to. When was the last time you, and this is another legitimate question for you, didn't use an app that you downloaded from an app store? Ooh. Yeah, okay. So it's not very common. So in the last month, how many times have you used an app that was not connected to an app store download? There, that's, I think, a better raise of hands type question. Okay, not many hands at all. But that's the point. I got to this point of realizing that I wanted something that was mine. And something that I could run and have control of and not felt like there was a subscription model tied to it. Now, I get that everybody's out for a continuing source of income, and I am not against that. What I am for, though, is taking that opportunity to drive your own sense of learning and growth and maybe understanding, but at the same time, freeing yourself from feeling like, oh, this next update, is it going to break something? Well, updates may still break something. That is a risk we all take every time there's an announcement that there's something dangerous and we need to run the next level. But here, we've got a few use cases on the slide. You may want to organize stuff, or do meal prep, or organize your recipes, or who knows. There are tons of opportunities here. In fact, we'll go over a couple of lists and places to get stuff. I even went over and asked the nice folks in the hall, in the vendor hall, hey, do you have anything that I could put in my Homelab so I could learn on it? They said, well, we've got a 30-day trial. I said, okay, now hold on. What happens on the 31st day? They said, well, we're going to rate limit what you can do. And I'm thinking, that's actually okay. Because if you leave me all the functions, but it's just slimmed down because it's not designed for a full-on company, in my Homelab, that's going to be fine. So it's actually worth asking some of these folks if there's a version that'll run on your home system. Now, I'm advocating for free versions of things from each of these types of services because we have to start somewhere. And to me, if you're about to engage in creating a bunch of different accounts, you want somewhere to put all those secrets because, please, for the love of all that is technological, do not recycle passwords, right? Right. So I want a tool that's going to help me manage all that, so get yourself a free password management tool. Or if you prefer, get a notepad, but don't lose it, and put it in a fireproof box in your home. Whatever you prefer, but have a way to manage all of that complexity. Because this becomes the starting point that you could use to later write up the map or the inventory list of what you're doing. Because, by the way, I don't know about all of you, but I am now beginning to discover that when I go into the kitchen, I may leave with a random piece of cheese and wonder what I did with my glasses. And I'm like, no, I think something's not right about this. And I'll find the glasses in the microwave and the cup of coffee in the fridge. And I don't even remember having cheese. So it's worthwhile to help organize your stuff and realize that management is going to be part of this project and part of this growth and learning. This is, in essence, going to be like winning a goldfish at a fair. Because you're going to leave saying, I won something, wait a minute, that's responsibility. But stick with me, it's worth it. Because once you consider the cost of what it takes to run things from your own home versus those subscription models, you may discover this gives you new direction. Or again, might help you rediscover why you enjoyed computing in the first place. Or give you a hobby outside of the thing you're studying about. Because sometimes you don't even know yet the thing that interests you most. How many of you are currently on a path to get a certification? Quite a few of you. Is that certification something you wanted to do or something you're being made to do? Raise your hand if it's something you're being made to do for a requirement. Okay? Now, how many of you raise your hands if it's something you are personally interested in? Oh, a lot more of you. Good for you. Good for you. How many of you are students, please? Students. Oh, good number of students. Okay. So, how many of you are not yet sure what direction you want to go in this giant umbrella called InfoSec or security or whatever? Oh, okay, I'm really fond of that. Thank you for raising their hand. That's actually amazing. Thank you for that. That's not willing to admit it for no, stop, what are you doing? Yeah, perfect. So all of that to say, we're going to go over a couple of these things, and I need to keep moving here because I'm pushing time. So look at the things you're going to need. You're going to need some kind of machine, some kind of storage unit, right? You're setting up a network, you're setting up a connection to that network, and how are you going to get to it? Because this is what? Your home lab. If it's your home lab, where are you putting it? Well, I hope at your house. Try not to put it at someone else's house. At least let them know and get permission. The point is that all of these steps are going to create needs, and there are stages to what we're building. So you have to get these stages in order? No, you don't have to get them in order. It helps. What you need to do is make sure that you write up your list like a checklist and mark them off as you get through them. By the way, it is possible to circle X and check the same box when you're going over it because you discover that the way you did it isn't the best way, and you want to do it again, or better, or different. Which, by the way, can sometimes beget a few extra devices in your life. How many of you know what a Raspberry Pi is? Okay, keep your hands up if you have more than one. 5? More than 5? Okay, more than 10 because of over the years? Yes, exactly. So if you have a couple of these things, you may discover that it's worthwhile to set up different things on different ones. But we're going to go over, and now I'm going to do and break the rule. We're going to set up a base level email to use to get all our communications and our confirmations that we're legitimate. We're going to set up use a tool to help set up our Raspberry Pi, because in this demo I'm using a Raspberry Pi, but you don't have to. You use whatever hardware you have at hand that still turns on and runs and has more than 2 gigabytes of memory. Who here is running a Homelab on less than 2 gigs of RAM? The demo machine I built for the original version of this presentation is running on a Raspberry Pi 3 with 1 gigabyte of RAM. I said terabyte before, excuse me, gigabyte of memory. And I've worked out finding the old documentation, and it's running off an external hard drive. So it boots and it runs, and it can run some basic things. I'm not going to ask it to do big stuff, but it certainly works enough as a proof of concept, which is all it was for. All right. We then are going to talk about, who here knows what Tailscale is? Cool. Who does not know what Tailscale is? I'm going to guess that's the rest of you. Okay, so if you've ever had to open a port in the firewall of your router at home, we can now skip that thanks to tools like Tailscale. You don't have to use that one, but that's the one I'm using here. And that actually is pretty neato because you can tie that to a real-world domain, and it will not get flagged and tagged in bad ways because there are benefits to spending $15 on a come in, hello, welcome, grab a sticker, grab a seat. We're happy to see you. You can go ahead and set that up on a real-world domain, and that will be enough to keep you from getting flagged by the bad guy services out there. Because it turns out when you have free domain names, sometimes those get flagged for naughty things. What you do with your Homelab is your business. Anyway, so we're going to use a Let's Encrypt certificate, so you will even get to secure this thing so the connection is legitimate and encrypted end-to-end. And we are going to do so much more than that because you're going to want these accounts right here, listed here, each of these separately because you're going to have the email. You're going to have separate accounts for setting up your DNS service account or for routing. You're going to want to get a fresh email. You're going to need an email account to tie to Tailscale, which means you're using the authentication mechanism and blah and technical blah. What you need to keep in mind is each of these services that are listed here are ones that count for Tailscale to be able to be used as a form of authentication to create an automated account with them, which you're going to want. Because that means that you can add to your device the Tailscale client. And why do I need that? Because that is going to be like your extra login step to connect to your lab without having to poke any holes anywhere. Because it's all done in software and you don't have to mess with that. So you use Tailscale as your new friend. And for that, we need some kind of authentication token. So again, we're using a common form of authentication like logging into a GitHub account, because you're going to need a GitHub account if you're going to use the free DNS option. You're going to do that with Tailscale to log in, and then from there we're going to use the email to establish Tailscale and GitHub. We're going to use GitHub to log into Tailscale and DuckDNS for free DNS service for planting your address in cyberspace. And then you're going to use that to hook to Cloudflare and, again, DuckDNS. DuckDNS is the free, hey, I want to get your name here.duckdns.org. That's what that is, instead of paying a registrar to host a domain for you. You choose the registrar of your choice, spend about $15 on a .com or some other domain, and you can skip that step and just point using that. The catch that you will discover later is that we have to do a little bit of jiggery pokery with setting up the authentication to Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is to get the certificate. That will help you get a solid connection and certificate to establish encryption, end-to-end security for your lab to your devices. Because you want to type in your domain.duckdns.org or similar so you can get your lab going. Okay, before I dive any further, are there questions? Does this make sense? Yes, sir. Wait 1 second. There's a gentleman with a microphone, and he's going to bring it to you so we can capture your question for posterity. Stand up, yes. And he's still going to come to you, so now thank you for identifying your location. I appreciate you playing this game, and I'm stalling so we can get to you with the microphone.
I'm sorry, are these slides going to be available later?
Yes, they will.
Awesome. Thank you.
I now feel guilty for making you do that. Okay, moving on. Stages of your build. You need to get your hardware. You need to load the OS. You're going to go ahead and get some kind of machine. Run a Pi 4 with an external drive, which if you got a Pi 4, it will power the NVMe without an external source. You will load a Linux onto it or use an old PC and put some common Linux. I used Ubuntu server. It's fine. If you really want to be fancy, you can put Raspberry Pi OS, and then you can choose and go, oh, it's easier for me to set up with the graphics stuff. And then there's one switch in their software, in their config software, that'll let you switch back to just headless mode. And then it's all command line, and then you freed up some memory, and it's not running X Windows anymore. This can get you off the ground, whatever works better for you. Now, prep. Get the Raspberry Pi Imager application. It is relatively straightforward. You will select the version that is just the headless version. The non-graphical is the one that will free up the most resources for you. You will select that. You will pop in a USB drive. Who here has used the Raspberry Pi Imager before? Oh, okay, a lot of folks. Would anyone like me to spend more time describing this? Raise your hand if you want me to go through that stuff. One hand. Okay, I appreciate you. All right, so when you go through and you select the OS, make sure you select the version that's the full 64-bit so you can get the most out of the software available. Thankfully, Raspberry Pi OS is one of the most well-supported Linux versions out there, so there are lots of libraries and things for it, which will come helpful down the road as you start to add software to it. You will then go ahead and make sure you edit the settings, being sure to turn on the SSH server, because you want to remotely connect to this thing using some kind of command line tool so you can do the next steps that follow. By default, when you install things, it won't necessarily turn on the SSH, which is secure shell, which is a remote connection. You want that turned on, so you're going to make sure to go in, make the settings happen, and then have it burn the file, burn the image to the thumb drive. Oh, that wound up floating in the wrong place on my slide. Oh, well, that's a weird thing. I'll fix that later. Meanwhile, here's a tip. If you only have one display or in a constrained environment, consider picking up one of these little inexpensive HDMI capture devices that you can get off of big box stores online and plug it into your laptop, desktop, whatever, and then launch the camera or photo booth app or whatever, or even OBS. If you know what OBS is, the Open Broadcast Software, you can, yes?
I love that. I love OBS. I've used it plenty of times.
This person says they love OBS, and yes, it is a great way to replace what I used to I was a video producer for a lot of years, and I was always excited by the ability to bring in sources and do stuff, and OBS does it in software literally for free. So it's a great utility. I believe it's search open broadcast software if you're looking for it. The point of mentioning this is that it acts like an extra monitor, because what you can do is plug in the external device that you've plugged in this case, a Raspberry Pi in our example, and you can use OBS to add a capture device, and by displaying it, you can look at that other screen. So you only have to live on a laptop. You don't need a second screen. You just plug into the capture device, and that's usually, I think, under $15 these days. So there's your spare screen without having to actually have a screen. And this is roughly what it'll look like when you bring it up. It's going to be very unexciting in black and white or just monochromatic, but that's fine because most of the rest of this is not visual sexy. However, it's awesome because, leave that up for 2 more seconds. The big thing you need to do in most Debian-style Linux builds is to do this. You are going to install on a thumb drive, you're going to launch it, and the second it comes up and you've got your network cable plugged into it and it sees the internet, that's the thing that I'm being naughty and not explaining how to do. There are plenty of videos that explain how to make sure that the network connection is up and running. You're going to take this and run sudo apt update, and then do the upgrade command that's down below that. And there's even a newer version of that got released a couple months ago, but it does the same thing. What does this do? It grabs all the latest versions of the software that you're going to need to start. And once that's done, because you've gone off to get a cup of your favorite beverage while that's working, you're going to come back. So, by the way, this is evening 1. In this model, I want you to spend 1 evening each time you do this. Set aside whatever amount of time you got, but get somewhere. It's about making progress, not getting the whole thing done. Can you agree? Raise your hand if you agree. You're willing to do this in stages, and it's okay to break things and do it again. Because you will. And it's going to be awesome because every time you do, you will learn something not to do. So, once the upgrade is done, we are now going to go and, P.S., this is the screen you wanted to take the picture of because this is the one that says how to manually configure the network. Because the first time you plug it in, it's going to, by default, grab a random address off your network. But you're going to want to know how to get back to this thing. So you're going to want to write down the network address. So you do this on a Debian-based machine. Caveat, if you are using something other than Raspberry Pi OS or Ubuntu, you may need to look up other documentation. Thank you. This actually will help you break down and set up and be able to find it again afterwards. Now, what is Tailscale? Tailscale is the glorious piece of software that I was like, this can't be real, but it allows me to set up a virtual private network connection from outside to inside. And it takes literally installing the software, authenticating to their service. But what does their service do? It manages the keys and distribution for WireGuard. And WireGuard is cryptographically significant keys handed out to your device using the protocol. WireGuard's the protocol. And it makes happy encrypted connections from you to other things that you control. So I want you to use Tailscale to take advantage of this. And as we do this, you will, hey, look at that. Here's how you do it. If you follow the exact documentation from them and follow the one from the website. Don't just do the basic install by going, apt install. No. Go to the actual website because it will help you to get updates from the vendor as they come out. And we're using the free tier. By the way, you can have up to 100 devices, I believe it is, on the free tier. Just log in as the same character each time, and you will be fine. When I say character, I mean use the same login. So always use the same account. If you created, for example, a Gmail, use that Gmail to log in on your phone, on your desktop, on your laptop, on your toaster oven, whatever you're using, your printer. And that will help you get secure connectivity, and you will get a different key for that one, and it'll be fine. P.S. There is a management interface for Tailscale, which I don't have here apparently, which I'll get back to later. Tip, you will want to disable the key expiry in Tailscale. Because the day you wake up away from your home, going to an event and say, why is it offline? And you panic, is the day you will realize, oh, I remember now, Sciatic told me to go and turn off the key expiry for my Homelab server, because by default it is set to 6 months, and you don't want that, because you will forget from the time you set this up till the day it expires, and you're wondering what went wrong. So you can go into it's just a little web page interface. You click a little, it's the ellipsis, but I think people call it sometimes the hamburger or the drop-down menu, and you will choose disable expiry for this item. Okay. DuckDNS. This is a way to get a free domain in cyberspace, and nobody calls it that anymore. I know, I'm old. It's okay. So you're going to get a free domain name here, but realize certain services that you may want to enable later may magically not work, because it turns out, since it's free, some people abuse the service. So if you go to set something up and you suddenly find that you can't set up a service you want, you may have to turn around and go to your favorite registrar, be it GoSomebody or whomever you choose, and register a domain name. And if you have a legit domain name, you won't run into that. But for the purposes of this, we're setting up with as little cost as possible. DuckDNS will let you authenticate using that GitHub account you created and established, and then you can authenticate to their service with the token from having logged in. So you basically log into GitHub first, go to DuckDNS second, and then you can register your own. They're going to say, what name do you want? And you say, my example cloud, which is what I did for the demo, and that will be established. And here's the funny thing. If you look, example local cloud has an IP address. Where did I get that from? I got it from my Tailscale, because what Tailscale does is make a software-based new set of addresses. Who here is not aware of 192.168 or 10.10. something? Okay, no hands. Okay, everybody's familiar with that. Great. This establishes, Tailscale establishes a separate set of those that are specifically for your Tailscale account. What that means is, when you need to add the address for your devices, the Tailscale admin console will show you, hey, here's the name of Raspberry Pi, whatever you called the server. That address on the Tailscale screen is what goes into your DuckDNS domain. What that means is you are now associating the internal-only Tailscale address to your newly created domain. Yes, sir. One moment. We have a question. The address being shown here is effectively the external IP address that is only accessible through Tailscale. So if you type this in right now, the reason I left it up there is because you can't touch it, because it's inside of the VPN connection. So that is literally the address you're going to put in, because you're essentially saying, I want to route to this from away from my house, which is why you get a domain name. And then it's going to route and hit only, because you have to log in on Tailscale on the server and on whatever is trying to connect to the server. So you're both using Tailscale. So if Tailscale is running on the server and on your client device, your mobile phone, your laptop, whatever, you are going to route hitting that external address to point to the internal address. And in this way, I don't have to open any holes in my home router, gateway, nothing. And that is one of the big tricks to this and why it works. And so you're telling this thing, because it's just a record in DNS outside. So I'm sitting off in the library someplace, and as long as the library doesn't block DNS, as long as the library doesn't block VPN services on their free Wi-Fi, I will be able to route to my stuff. Hey, how many of you are currently at a university and plan to do this while you're at university? Fun fact, lots of universities block VPN services. So don't be surprised if you go to try it out at your school and it doesn't let you. So try it at your coffee shop instead, where they're far less likely to be blocking that stuff. Just a tip. All right, moving on. A lot of corporate entities also will. Well, if you are at work, you may want to focus on your day job, string day job, versus playing with your Homelab. Just a suggestion, but you do you. Not here to judge. Meanwhile, this is what the Tailscale admin page is, and if you look there, wait, there's a laser thing. This is right off the edge here. I think I've cut it off. After the last scene will be the 3 dots for each row. If we imagine that one is the server, there will be 3 dots here, and this is where I'm going to click the drop down that says, hey, I want to disable key expiry. That's where you want to do that. Okay. So now we've seen what Tailscale's admin page looks like, and I can tell you, yeah, I was trying to tell you, see, there's an IP address there. That's what you're putting in the duck DNS to build that connection, right? So when I go here, that came from, theoretically, that. I may be pointing at the wrong row. It's a little bit of a strange angle for me, but I think you get the idea. Questions so far? Yes, sir. The question was, is it a publicly available IP address? It is an address that is public-facing as long as you are logged into that Tailscale account. It is public-facing as far as both sides are connected to Tailscale. Hold on. Let him come to you because you got more to say, and I want that captured, if you don't mind. And thank you.
Sorry. So the duck DNS is you're sending that IP to duck DNS so that it recognizes it as an authorized device.
Right. I'm using duck DNS to make the pointer, and it's going to point across the internet, and it will only succeed in making the connection if the machine that's asking for it is running and logged into my Tailnet account, my Tailscale account. So yes.
For all it's worth, if somebody were, thank you, sorry. For all it's worth, if somebody were to capture that IP address, it wouldn't matter because of the VPN, you could be in Sweden or something.
Because why?
Because they could take that and be seen as like, yo, you're in Sweden, but in reality, you're in the States or something like that.
Well, no. So it isn't about location; it's about being inside the tunnel. And so, if you're not part of that network, you are not authorized to make the connection. So it will block you because nothing recognizes the connection. There is a risk. There is a risk that came out about 2.5 months ago for Tailscale because they didn't expect to be as popular as they have become, where it turns out that there's a feature to turn on when you create your Tailscale account to make sure that you turn on authorization, where you basically, since you're creating the account, you're the administrator of that account, so you will have to approve any devices getting added to your network. So that is going to be very important to do because if you used, let's say, a Gmail account, which I did, it is possible for other people to be naughty and try to figure out how to jump onto other people's Gmail-based accounts. So what that means is you turn this on, so if you ever get someone knocking at your door that you weren't anticipating, don't open the door. So that is the workaround, and I think they might have resolved it by now. But you can look this up. It's public. And someone said, oh, see, look, it's a problem. Okay, it's a problem. Solve the problem. The problem is turn on this thing so not everybody can just walk on in and make it so that you have to authorize things. Which means, hey, pay attention. If you're adding something new, like a new phone, you're inviting a friend to, hey, you want to get on my game server or whatever I'm running? Cool. Install Tailscale. I'm going to tell you how to log into my network, and off you go. Or create an account for them so they can join your network, one or the other. And that's your management. That's effectively your new login to entry is gaining access to the Tailnet. Because otherwise, it will not route. Does that answer the questions for both of you? Thank you so much. Appreciate the questions. All right. Oh.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to add that by default, if your ISP is assigning IPv6, that's globally routable, and you have to block that with a firewall. Otherwise, despite all of this, you're going to be open.
Oh, very good to know. Disable IPv6 or make sure you're not making use of it in your Homelab. Correct? Thank you, because apparently IPv6 is globally routable. Yes, but it's you and 10 other very sharp people who are using IPv6. That's the joke. Who here is aware of IPv6 Day? Okay, exactly. Okay, so if you've ever seen the meme, there are dozens of us, right? So unfortunately, it should be in wider use, so this is less of an issue because then the people would develop towards that kind of risk. But since it's not as well used as it should be, it is a risk, but a lesser risk. But it is a risk. And so disable IPv6 for now, just to avoid the risk, right? Okay, thank you for that. Right around the corner, yes. And this is the year of the Linux desktop too. While I'm at it, if we're gonna, yes, okay. Now, okay, so there's another fancy thing you can do where you can split the DNS, but that I'm going to let you go into because we're already 33 minutes in and I want to keep rolling. But this is good and interesting because what you want to do is make sure that, hey, when it comes time to recognize your device, you may want to put in whatever managed DNS that's going to update faster so that you can route internally. It's a whole separate thing. But we're going to keep moving and say, what is Docker? Because Docker is the next stage. So what did we do so far? We established a password management tool to help us manage all the complexity and to write notes. We went ahead and created an account for an email to use to validate all these things. A brand new, fresh email account, because you don't want to mix your lab with your real-world stuff that you use. There are plenty of free options there. Then you went ahead and you created a GitHub account, which you needed the email address for, all in the house that Jack built, right? Then you use that to authenticate to DuckDNS and you have a domain or you went out and bought a domain. So now we need to get to Docker. And now when we talk about Docker, which is, you know, the 3 raccoons in a trench coat over there, what is it? I'm like, I don't know, but it's an effective way to actually make use of and virtualize resources on a machine. So that one machine, because, hey, I did VMware stuff when it was free with the player and all that, and that was great. And then I did, what was the other one? Connectix did it. It was, what was it called? Somebody shout it out. VirtualBox. That was it. And I did that for a while, and that was great. But it's like, oh, I made 3 machines, and now this machine barely runs. So someone explained to me that Docker will let you effectively use all of these resources over and over again, but it makes this work, even though I understand very little about what it really does. But when you install Docker, I'm recommending you actually, again, don't just hit the generic install thing, but go straight to the Docker page and read their instructions and follow, copy, paste their stuff to add the repositories so you get the latest updates. Why? So that you are not ages behind on some of the security patches that come out because, hey, security is kind of important, but I think that's kind of C:\duh, considering where we are, but it's worth mentioning. So, now that you've installed Docker, the 2 that I had tested out originally were Cosmos Cloud and Casa OS. And in my exploration, I found, because a lot of folks haven't heard of Cosmos Cloud. This is part of the, oh, no, that's different. I haven't done that one yet. I've done, and fill in the blank. So Cosmos Cloud creates kind of the managed interface that lets me do the rest of what I'm trying to do. Cosmos Cloud and Casa OS. Casa OS feels like it's more customizable up front, but also requires a little more tinkering to add the reverse proxy and other features that are just built in Cosmos Cloud. They both have a store interface, so you can say, oh, I would like to add Thing, for example, a simple way to have like a file browser. They both have that in their store interfaces. Couple of clicks, it pulls the image file fresh, it installs it, and it's amazing. Now, if we're going to install Cosmos Cloud, that is the magic command. You can also go straight to their webpage, look at their more updated installation documentation. This is the Docker-focused install. The newer one leaves it as a service to manage in the actual OS, so that you use that, there's a fancy command that basically says start and stop, and you're going to use that to manage it if you use their latest stuff. I did it as a Docker thing to try it, and it worked fine for me. There are advantages to each. It's very exciting, like watching people fold socks or paint drying, but this is what you would see if you were doing it. It'll all just scroll by on the screen. And then at the end, this is the bit you want to pay attention to because this is how you connect to it. And so you're going to connect either using Cosmos, setup-Cosmos, what it says on the screen over there. And you're going to hit that IP address that you wrote down before because you, of course, were documenting everything as you went along, right? Right? This will teach you to do that because the first time you go forth to do something and you can't get there, you no, what did I do? What did I forget to do? Oh, write it down. Okay, so make sure you're writing it down. And when you do that, welcome. You will follow the bouncing thumb, and it will take you through the process to install. Yes, leave the checkbox marked for. It'll build the database for you without any questions being asked. And then when you next, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to do to secure this communication, this connection? You are going to let it run and do its job. It will fill out the things. The database will be connected. And then you will get to the, hey, how do you want to secure your connection? This is the crucial step. This is the end of night one, I can tell you right now. Because depending on how quickly you went through the other steps, you're going to learn a phrase with me. The phrase is, it was DNS. Say it together with me. It was. Thank you. It's everyone has the corollary. It was always DNS. Yes. So now, what you have to remember here is our friend DuckDNS. If you did it that way, or if you use something else like Cloudflare, you are going to learn a special trick. The trick is that you are going to need to grab a piece of information and that IP address. See, we're just telling you, look, take the IP address of the machine running Cosmos that you've installed to, because that internal address is what you're going to place in your DuckDNS so it can route to that inside of your tailnet, your tailscale. And then, once you've done that, you're going to grab that information, and that's going to be the domain you want to put in the box for, hey, where are we going to? Because you're going to use Let's Encrypt. Who here does not know what Let's Encrypt is? Okay, Let's Encrypt is a service started initially by the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, to make it possible to get digital certificates to secure connections for just about everybody. And so you don't have to pay for them, where normally you did have to pay for it. So what this does is you can use a special client that will help you automate the getting and renewing, replacing of short-lived digital certificates. You want short-lived certificates so that if someone was naughty and swiped it, you want the window to be narrower for how long that would be effective against you. So you want to set up these table settings, adding the split. Look at the slides later. We want to keep moving here. The point is that you need the split DNS entries to make it faster to find in DNS, because otherwise you're not going to get a hit when you come back. That's why this is the end of night one, but you're not done. Because when you put this in and you type in the address that you have created for your certificates, you want to change it from using the basic ones to the Let's Encrypt option. You want to get automated cert replacement because that will allow you to get this done. Now, when you do that, whatever you've chosen for your provider, you will need to look up. There's going to be a help link in there, and you're going to need to populate a special token. What token? The token you're going to get from DuckDNS, which is on your page when you log in, and you're going to copy that because it's going to be the identifier that lets you go and present it to Let's Encrypt the service, because it's going to say, hey, how do I know I'm supposed to let you through here? Because it's going to, Let's Encrypt will knock on the door and say, hey, can I come in for this user? And you have to have this token to present to say that it's legitimately you, because it was generated when you created the account. And it'll generate a fresh one every so often. So you have to copy it and paste it. Now, so you're going to go into the DuckDNS token blank, if that's what you chose, and you're going to paste there, and make sure you also check the wildcard option because you don't want to create a bunch of them. You want one cert to rule them all. And then, if you get the green check mark, you are ready to fly. And when you try it, you're going to get an error message. And it's going to tell you, I can't find that. Oh, by the way, if you succeed, you also have to create an account to manage your Cosmos installation. So that's the last step if you succeeded. But don't be upset if, when you go to finish and apply this to actually try it, because at this point you won't have gotten the error message. You'll think, oh, I've done all the steps. I'm good to go. But then, the end of night one has been reached. Do not fret. Do not despair. What's wrong? What is it? It's always DNS. So, be patient. Don't give up. Try again. And when it still fails, go back and actually use the command to look in the log to see that it actually claims that it failed trying to resolve the DNS. That doesn't mean you're dead in the water. It means you're pausing for the night so you can save your sanity and then go off and bite your nails or get some sleep or whatever you do, because when we go back, DNS is evil. It's just a time thing. It will eventually resolve. So, I am out of time, but don't you dare give up. Instead, what you need to do is realize that if a kid who was a kid when this was supposed to be a dragon and not a duck can make this work, you can make this work. So, your perseverance will pay off, and you will get your server. And then what do? You go out. Say it one more time. It was DNS. Go get yourself some cool software. Read up on how to actually Dockerize things with things like Composerize, which will help you create compose files, which is what you use to build these things. Go on to GitHub, say awesome self-hosted GitHub. You will find a list that ends your mind about the possibilities of things you can now do because you, at the end of night 1 or 2, have set up your own Homelab, and you are now at the beginning of the journey that will make you so happy and so sad and so frustrated, but you will learn things. I actually, in just figuring out this talk, learned things that applied at my real world job, and it was absolutely worthwhile, and I thank you so much for your time.